men and women who deliver justice.
People will say that judicial officers don't live in the real world. How is it that you got yourself into this mess?
One thing leaps off the page in terms of hope. As a criminal, not very good at it.
There is nothing more real than what goes on in the courts. This is reality.
The Downing Centre, Sydney, Australia's busiest local court, where 12 magistrates sit in judgment.
The volume of work to come through this court is huge.
Now, for the first time, our cameras will take you to the front lines of the legal system.
You've entered a plea of guilty to a charge that carries 2 years imprisonment.
Punches were thrown as he ever attacked you.
Objection. Objection, Your Honour.
The magistrates' verdicts can change lives forever.
Lost my job, lost everything.
2 years in jail.
Everything will be all right.
The court will not be hoodwinked.
The defendant can be taken into custody, please.
This is Court Justice, Sydney.
The role of the courts is to protect the community. Some people think the community will be protected by locking people up. Well, that's just the blunt instrument of incarceration. It doesn't always work.
There's more to the justice system than simply punishing people.
Sentencing someone to a term of imprisonment is the last resort. The court must consider all the available opportunities for rehabilitation, for punishment, for deterrence, for protection of the community. But when you get to the point where they have all been considered and deemed to be not acceptable, you must send somebody to prison. I'm of the opinion that there is no other alternative sentence other than a term of imprisonment.
I have given this young man opportunity after opportunity, all to no avail. Can the defendant be taken into custody, please?
That's why I was appointed. That's the oath I took to administer the law. It's what the law requires.
Magistrate Greg Grogan spent 10 years as a police officer and 20 years as a barrister. He's seen the courtroom from all sides.
Morning, Your Honour. Edwards for the police.
Excited. Matters to mention.
Yes, Your Honour. The matter of Gyridos.
Yes, I have those papers.
20-year-old Frenchman, Julien Gyridos, is facing an assault charge. His defence barrister is Michael Valentin.
He's a young kid from France who's come to Australia and has become involved in an incident. That incident has had severe consequences to both the victim and himself.
Plead guilty to the assault occasion actual bodily harm?
Yes, Your Honour.
Facts and record.
Your Honour, I also have 2 things to hand up as well, one by way of a testimonial. The other is a copy of his French criminal record with a corresponding translation.
There's no objection.
According to the police fact sheet, Julien got into an argument at a Sydney casino. After being ejected, the fight continued outside and he king-hit a man.
So as a result of a, would appear, king hit from the back, the victim got multiple facial fractures.
Yes, Your Honour.
I try hard with all my clients. A friend of mine said, Michael, your biggest problem in life is your bleeding heart. I guess that is true. Ultimately, I think Mr. Gyridos is just a young man who's made a mistake with serious consequences, and we now have to do everything to ensure that that mistake has a minimal impact upon his life. My client is fully aware that his actions have led to the serious injury of the victim.
Those injuries consist of fractured facial bones.
Yes, Your Honour.
Now, I'll let you know right at the outset that I'm considering a custodial sentence.
In a local court, an assault charge can carry a 2-year prison sentence. There are tough new laws against king hits to reduce alcohol-fueled violence.
Mr. Valentin, I'm going to stand this matter down until later on because it's going to take a little bit longer than might have been anticipated. Let's say not before 2.
They take no pleasure in sending people to jail. None at all. It can be a difficult task because of what will happen. But no, you take an oath when you're sworn into these positions, and you're required to comply with it. You have to do your duty. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Your Honour. The claim for the prosecution.
Yes, who'd like to mention something?
The matter of Rusianos?
Yes.
Appearing before Deputy Chief Magistrate O'Brien is 26-year-old Philip Rusianos. A year ago, he pleaded guilty to disposing of stolen goods. As an alternative to jail, he was given a community service order, but he failed to complete it.
Your Honour, this matter is a breach of community service order, a call-up.
The court ordered him to undertake 100 hours of community work. He only completed a third. The defence is trying to keep him out of jail.
Your Honour, he's had a relationship breakdown with his ex-partner of 7 years, with whom he has 5 children. He doesn't currently have access to the children, and he's been struggling to really keep his life on track. I'd ask Your Honour to certainly take that into account in respect of the breach, and of course the hours he did manage to complete. Your Honour, given the objective seriousness, and given his age, and given the plea of guilty that he entered, he does have decent prospects going forward, Your Honour, and any term of imprisonment, I think, in the circumstances, could be suspended on the condition that he continue on that path, that he remained of good behaviour.
We understand the consequence of sending someone to jail. There will be consequences for them. There will be consequences for their family, for their children, for their employment. They may lose their home. You have to reach the point where there is no other alternative but jail before you can impose that sentence.
He has come some way since the breach.
I'll just put that to the side for a moment. I'll think about what you've had to say to me.
Okay.
And I'll come back to it shortly.
Sure.
Magistrate O'Brien may have no way of avoiding the last resort. Many of Australia's 38,000 prisoners are convicted in the local courts. At the Downing Centre, new prisoners are held in basement cells before being transported to jail.
Jail offers the ultimate punishment and, consequently, the ultimate deterrent. Jails are very forbidding places. When people go there, it's not going to be a happy experience for them. The court understands that, but sometimes there is no alternative.
Deputy Chief Magistrate O'Brien is sentencing unemployed father of 5, Philip Rusianos. He was found guilty of possessing stolen goods and given a community service order as an alternative to jail. Now, he's breached that order.
Mr. Rusianos is before the court today following the revocation of a community service order. He had been required to attend community service work on 17 scheduled days, and he had attended on 4 days only. The imposition of a community service order is a direct alternative to the imposition of a jail sentence. When people do not do community service orders that courts have ordered, if the court is to retain any semblance of respect, then there must be penalties imposed which have some meaning. I have carefully read the facts, I have carefully considered his record, and I have read the pre-sentence report. In my view, there is no alternative but for the imposition of a full-time custodial sentence, and that is the order that I propose that should be made. Can you stand up, please, Mr. Rusianos? Mr. Rusianos, you're sentenced to a fixed term of imprisonment of 4 months, commencing today, the 20th of May 2016, and expiring on the 19th of September 2016. Can the defendant be taken into custody, please? I sometimes wonder if I've done the right thing. You can't let it consume you. Otherwise, I think you'd become paralysed with an inability to make decisions. And you can't have that.
We'll be there soon.
All's there. Local police downstairs.
Yes, good morning.
Martin for the police.
Mr. Dicker, do you have something you can mention?
I am in the matter of Stewart.
James Stewart?
Yes.
29-year-old James Stewart has been charged with urinating on a train, resisting an officer, and offensive language.
I had to come to Sydney to pick my niece and nephew up. 2 bottles of Jack Daniels later, and then everything's a blur. I can vaguely remember picking them up from the airport and then woke up in Surrey Hills Police Station. Most of the time you might get a flashback or something, remember bits and pieces of what happened. Just wake up in a cell or wherever you wake up getting told what you've done.
James has a long record of drug and alcohol-related offences. A series of good behaviour bonds required him to stay out of trouble or face jail.
Mr. Dicker, Mr. Stewart had a number of good behaviour bonds, multiple good behaviour bonds that had to be called up.
I just wanted to get a count of how many there were, that's all.
Loads. But there are numerous, canvassing a whole different range of offending.
Deputy Chief Magistrate Motley must calculate a penalty, taking the new offences into account.
It's nothing I'm not used to, getting locked up, but it's just hard being away from my family and that, my kids and that, and trying so hard to get my life on track. Drugs and alcohol, and started heavy when I was 12, never really worried about it too much. So I've got the kids and the wife now, and yeah, they do it a bit hard as well, so it's not just me that I'm affecting, so yeah, it's hard.
So, Mr. Dicker, look, this is a very difficult task. Your client has been sentenced to multiple suspended sentences for resisting officers in execution of duty, assault occasioning an actual bodily harm, driving whilst disqualified.
Yeah, I'm just had enough of it, and I've been trying real hard for the last 5 years to stay out of trouble, get off the alcohol and drugs, do the right thing. That's easy said than done. I just hope my kids don't get in the same path. Worried about losing them and that too. My wife, Jonah, she's getting sick of waiting around. She'll probably leave me again if I get locked down. But yeah, I wouldn't want her to wait around for me again anyway. I want her to move on with her own life if I can't be there for her. Yeah.
The facts of the resist officer in execution of duty don't portray that as being the most grave example of an offence of resisting an officer. But it's resisting officers in execution of duty nonetheless, and it places him in breach of those Section 12 good behaviour bonds. I can't take no action. That would be manifestly inadequate. But another suspended sentence is just not an option.
Yes.
I'll I'll just take a temporary adjournment and work through this. Okay.
James's life remains in limbo until Deputy Chief Magistrate Motley makes a decision.
Yes, I have to deal with the crime, but we're trying also to deal with the factors which cause you to perhaps get into trouble more than you should.
Compassion must have a role because we're dealing with people.
You've never been to jail. It's not a place where you would enjoy yourself.
If you're looking at people who are committing crimes, it's my experience that those people are often struggling with significant issues in their life. But you can't let compassion override all the other important considerations. Otherwise, the other purposes of sentencing won't have been met.
Deputy Chief Magistrate Motley presides over the case of James Stewart. The father of 4 is expecting to go to jail after breaching multiple good behaviour bonds.
I'm an alcoholic and drug addict. If I get excited, I want to drink, I want to drug. If I'm sad and want to drink, drug. Any emotion sort of is a trigger. I've been battling it for a while now, trying to stay after drinking that. Turns me into someone I'm not.
James has a complicated web of previous sentences.
I think your client has spent at least a month, possibly 6 weeks in custody. The notation is 6th of May 2015, an appearance in custody, and then on the 16th of June 2015, in custody. Can you remember for how long?
About 5 months, and they give me bail to a rehab.
It should be reflected as well in the sentence.
Yeah,
It's time served.
That's right. This is not easy.
James has already served time in jail, as well as undertaking rehabilitation directed by the court.
Mr. Stewart has done the wrong thing, and he's been punished for his crime by being sentenced to a term of imprisonment. Now in the predicament of committing a further offence, which would cause the court to look at revoking that suspended sentence. Since the commission of that course of offending, Mr. Stewart has done some remarkable work in his own rehabilitation. It would be regrettable for the work that he has done to be unravelled with a sentence of imprisonment by way of a full-time incarceration. There's still one set of papers outstanding, so we'll put this over to the 1st of July. Is that okay, Mr. Stewart? Okay.
My wife and 4 kids, I'll be happy to send me back home today. But it's still, they'll still be waiting for me to go until everything's finalised before we can really move on. What about the paperwork she's got? Can that make it worse if it's...
No. She just needs it here for technicality. I mean, you're always looking at jail. There's always an option there. But I don't think that's the path that we're going down.
Hello? Hey. That's all finished now. I'm just on 14 months parole. You know the 4 months that I did? Before, they never took that into account last time when they sentenced me, and she took it off as I did 4 months already.
Get on the first train home.
Yeah, well, I will be. If I don't stop drinking, I know where it leads me. At least I know, but... At least I know what happens when I drink and drug. When I don't, who knows what can happen. It's a bit scary. Good things can happen. And that's even scary because you don't know what's out there.
Yes, Mr. Valentin, the matter of Gyridos.
Magistrate Grogan is hearing the case of 20-year-old Julian Gyridos. The French national king hit a man outside a casino, leaving him with facial fractures. After a number of deaths in Sydney, community outrage over king hits is high.
Your Honour, we have a situation here where we have a client who is not otherwise known to police, who has no prior record, who I would submit is a good character, He has acted recklessly, he has acted cowardly. I would submit, however, that given his age, given his vulnerability with his level of English, that this matter is best dealt with by way of a bond under Section 9. Unless I can address Your Honour any further.
Thanks, Mr Valentin.
Prior to becoming a barrister and coming to the bar, I was actually a registered nurse, and I was a nurse within the correctional centre environment, so I was a correctional nurse. What that unfortunately means is a couple of things. It means that I've always got a large amount of empathy for my clients. I feel for every one of them, from the very good to the very bad, especially in a situation like this where you do have a young man who has unfortunately made a horrible, terrible mistake and is now going to have some impact on his life.
I look at rehabilitation as part of the sentencing process, and at the moment I don't see any need for rehabilitation because he's a person of good character. There needs to be a general deterrence message sent in any sentence, and that is, as it is consistently sent by this court, that assaults on the streets of Sydney will not be tolerated. There needs to be also an element of punishment. It's difficult because you have so many things to consider, but it's only after consideration of all those other matters, the circumstances, their record, their attitude, that the court must take that final step. It's not easy for any magistrate or judge to send a person to jail, but it's part of the process of administering the law. Stand up, please, Mr. Gyridos. This is the next temporary sentence involving Mr. Julian Gyridos, who has pleaded guilty to one count of assault occasioning actual bodily harm. The behaviour in which the offender engaged is contrary to the community standards and is contrary to what a person walking around the streets of Sydney should encounter. It is deplorable conduct which the court denounces. Mr. Gyridos, you are convicted. You are sentenced to a fixed term of imprisonment of 3 months. That is to date from today. You will be eligible for release and are to be released on the 13th of October 2016.
May I please?
All right, thank you. Thanks, officers. Thanks, Mr. Dale.
Thank you, Your Honour.